Hello everybody and welcome to the physics channel. My name is Rocket and I'm today talking about three of the bosons. This is the second to last episode of my series about the elementary particles. So let's dive into it. This is the big questions made little. The first elementary particle we're looking at today is the photon. Now you've probably heard of this thing. It's a light particle. That's not referencing weight. Literally light, the thing you see with. When light or energy goes towards something like an atom, it excites the electrons on the outer shells. They have energy and they start vibrating a lot. They move more, just like the rest of an atom. And when that energy is discharged, it's discharged as a photon, or a light particle. Photons with certain wavelengths, because they're waves, not particles, it's confusing, I'll explain it in a minute, are visible to the naked eye. When they hit the cells in your retina, they send off connections to your brain, allowing you to see what's around you. And it is the boson that carries and is a part of the electromagnetic force. Being a light particle, it travels at that famous number, the speed of light, the impenetrable barrier of speed that science fiction has been working to get past, and science has been working to get past for a long time. Most of you will know it from school. It is 3 times 10 to the 8 meters per second, but to be a bit more accurate, it's 299,792,458 meters per second, or 2.99792,458 times 10 to the 8, if you want it in standard form, which is how it's usually given. Now, when an electron emits a photon, it doesn't send it out. To begin with, it's 0 meters per second, and then it increases really fast, accelerating. That doesn't happen. From the instant it exists, it is moving at 299,792,458 meters per second. Now, that's defined as being the speed of light in a vacuum. So when you have a complete vacuum with nothing in it, that's how fast light travels. Now, light can be slowed down in air. That doesn't mean the photons are traveling any less quickly, but it means that they keep getting reflected by all the particles in the air, bouncing off of one another, so that although they still travel in a roughly straight line towards your eye, they've bounced around a little bit, and the average speed of them, i.e. the actual distance they've moved from where they started off to where they end up, divided by the total time that takes, ends up coming out as a speed that's a bit less, because they've zigzagged a bit on their way. Although they've still reached the destination, they've not done it quite in the straight line we assume they have. The photons are still moving at the same speed, but when you have a medium for them to travel through, their overall velocity, their average speed, is less. This is where photon booms or photonic booms come in. Now, you'll all know that when something like a supersonic jet reaches the speed of sound, you have that massive air cone, that massive pressure wave coming off behind it, and that huge roaring boom. A sonic boom. You can also get a photonic boom. That's when something accelerates faster than the speed of light. Now, that doesn't make sense, I know. Let me explain. Nothing can travel faster than 299,790,450 meters per second. That's not possible. As far as the laws of physics that we understand them go, you can't actually go faster than that. It's not possible. However, inside of nuclear reactors, when you've got insanely high pressures going on, sometimes you get a particle that has a mass and it starts moving really fast. Because there's such a high pressure, the photons are reduced, the average speed of the photons from where they start off to where they end up is nowhere near as fast as 299,792,458 meters per second. What they're really going, the average speed of that is about 75% of their normal average speed, which is considerably less. In fact, it's roughly 224,844,343.5 meters per second. And what you can have is particles that have a mass that start going faster. Because photons don't have a mass, and the amount of energy that they're made up of is so small that the force they actually impart on a particle when they bounce off of it, when they're reflected by it, is so low, they don't move it much. However, when you have a particle with mass getting forced out at insanely high speeds, it barely slows when it bounces into all these particles that are reflecting the photons about. As a result, what you get is a particle that sets off at the same time as a photon from the same position and ends up at the same place, but because it has a mass, it forces even the really high pressure particles that it's surrounded by out of the way, causing the photons to stay behind and get reflected around and slow down, and it gets there first. It is travelling faster than the average speed of the photons. It's travelling faster than light, which is really awesome. Of course, that doesn't change the fact that nothing can go faster than the speed of light in a vacuum, 2.99792,458 times 10 to the 8 meters per second. But it's still really awesome. What you end up having is this really bright blue glow that goes on. And we're still trying to sort of understand exactly what's causing all of that. It's as the photons are shifted, as they're overtaken by a physical particle, it causes a sort of pressure wave that they're reflected by. The speed of these particles causes a pressure wave, much like a sonic boom, a sound wave, inside of these high pressure vessels. And this means that the light particles that would be travelling parallel to these particles get reflected out into these shock waves. This is what causes a big sort of glowing blue hue. Right, going on to our next elementary particle, or I will never shut up about it, the photons, we have the gluon. Now this is the particle that interacts with a strong nuclear force. It's the particle that enforces it, and it holds quarks together inside of protons and neutrons. So in one of my earlier videos I said how protons and neutrons are made up of up quarks and down quarks. They're held together by the strong nuclear force, by gluons. And that name comes from the word glue, you know, the sticky thing that you hold bits of paper together. It glues, as it were, because that's the definition that the one the scientists used, and it kind of stuck. No pun intended. That's where that name comes from, gluon. It kind of glues the quarks together inside of the protons and neutrons, inside of all the atoms in the universe. Moving on to the last boson of today, we have the Higgs boson. Now this is a relatively newly discovered particle. It was discovered by the Large Hadron Collider in CERN back in 2013. However, a man named Peter Higgs had been theorizing and writing papers about it all the way back since 1965, and people have been saying, oh, that's not real, that's not a thing, you're talking nonsense. And now, in 2013, nearly 50 years later, it was finally proven to exist. And it's still much less is known about this particle than about other elementary particles. So I've not got as much to say on this one. However, it has a spin, interestingly, of 0. The spins of the photons and the gluons I've mentioned before are 1. The definition of the difference between a boson and a fermion, fermions are particles like quarks and leptons, is that fermions have half-integer spin, bosons have integer spin, so 1 or 0. Photons and gluons both have a spin of 1, integer 1. The Higgs boson only has a spin of integer 0, at least the one that we've discovered and looked at so far. So if there's any information you know or you'd like to share about of the Higgs boson, feel free to go on about it, have a nice little rant about it if you like in the comments. I will be back next week, and I will be talking all about the last 3 elementary particles, the W plus boson, the W negative boson, and the Z boson. So you can look forward to that, or you can run and scream. It's your choice. But thanks for watching, guys. I will explain more next video about what bosons actually are, and I'll see you next week. Thanks for watching, and bye.